The internet. A vast network where we think we're always in control, always the ones doing the watching. But what if I told you there are places online where something, or someone is watching us instead? We all know that feeling. That sickening knot in your stomach when you realize you've clicked one link too far, when you found something online that you were never meant to see. From government experiments that blur the line between dreams and reality, to presidential secrets and unexplained disappearances that lead to disturbing discoveries. Tonight, I bring you 6 stories from the darkest corners of the deep web. 6 individuals who ventured too deep into places they shouldn't have gone. These aren't your typical creepypasta tales or internet urban legends. These are accounts of people who found things they wish they could forget. But here's the twist. Out of these 6 stories, 3 are complete fiction, and the other 3, they really happened. As I take you through each chilling tale, try to guess which ones are real. Stay with me until the end to uncover which stories are born from imagination and which ones are disturbingly true. Now let's dive into the first story. It begins in a college dorm room in Minnesota, where a young student thought he knew his way around the dark web. What he found there was a forum that shouldn't exist. A place where the future had already been written.
This happened back when I was in college and was going through my tech explorer phase. I wasn't doing anything illegal, just browsing .onion sites out of curiosity with a couple of VPNs running. I stumbled across this totally normal-looking forum that seemed like any regular message board, except it was weirdly active for being on the dark web. Like, hundreds of users online at once. The weird part was that every username was just a string of numbers, and people kept posting these really specific coordinates along with timestamps. At first I thought it was some ARG or geocaching thing. But then I noticed the timestamps were all future dates, usually 2 to 3 weeks ahead. And in between the coordinate posts, users would share these incredibly detailed predictions about random people. What they'd be wearing, where they'd be going, their routines. The thing that made me nope the hell out was when I recognized one of the locations. It was a coffee shop near my campus. I checked the coordinates and timestamp from a post that was about 3 weeks old. Sure enough, it described exactly what had happened there. A red Honda had crashed into a delivery truck in a minor fender bender. The post had been made weeks before the accident actually occurred. I closed everything down and never went back. But sometimes I wonder about that forum and all those number usernames just watching and knowing things they shouldn't be able to know. The coordinated, mechanical way they posted made me feel like I'd stumbled across something that wasn't meant for regular people to see. I know this probably sounds tame compared to the usual dark web stories, but something about it felt deeply wrong in a way I can't really explain. Like I was seeing the back end of reality or something. These days I stick to regular browsers and leave the dark web exploration to braver souls than me.
They say knowledge is power. But perhaps there are some things we're not meant to know. Some corners of the future better left unexplored. What would you do if you found tomorrow's headlines today? Would you believe them? We're told the truth is written in our history books, documented in our archives, preserved in our recordings. But what if what we consider historical fact is just another carefully constructed illusion? The next story comes from Brandon, a researcher who thought he was simply investigating the JFK assassination. A mystery that has captured American imagination for generations. But what he discovered in the darkest corners of the internet raises a far more disturbing question. How much of our nation's history have we actually seen with our own eyes?
I found something seriously disturbing while researching documents about the JFK assassination on the dark web last month. Not the usual conspiracy stuff we all know about, the magic bullet theory in the grassy knoll. This was different. I stumbled across this forum thread linking to what looked like legitimate scanned documents from the 1970s. Internal FBI memos, pieces of 𝐭𝐴𝐞 files that weren't in the official release. They were discussing something called Operation Mockingbird, and its connection to several presidents. For those who don't know, Operation Mockingbird was a real CIA program where they manipulated the media. That's been confirmed in declassified docs. But these files went deeper. They showed how certain presidential speeches and appearances during the Cold War were carefully staged and manipulated by the CIA to shape public perception. The weird part was, they specifically focused on President Nixon's resignation. According to these documents, what we saw on TV wasn't the real footage. It was carefully edited, and some parts were even early attempts at deepfake technology. I know it sounds crazy, but hear me out. The thread had links to original unedited film reels. When I compared them to the famous resignation footage we all know, there were subtle but clear differences. The lighting was wrong in ways that film experts in the comments were breaking down in detail. The audio had inconsistencies that lined up with documented CIA audio manipulation techniques from that era. The deeper I dug, the more I found about other presidents and how their public images were manufactured. There were detailed breakdowns of speech patterns, body language analysis, and timestamps showing impossible chronological discrepancies in official appearances. Then it got really weird. Users started posting links to declassified documents about MK Ultra and how it tied into this. Not the drug experiment stuff we all know about, but the media manipulation aspects. Some of these documents matched perfectly with files that were officially released years later through FOIA requests, which is what makes this so creepy. The thread disappeared about a week later. When I tried to access it through Tor, I got weird routing errors I'd never seen before. A few days later, some of the documents I'd read about started showing up on mainstream news sites, but with completely different interpretations. I tried to download the files but got errors. And yes, I know about the National Archives releases from 2017. Some of what I saw matches those documents exactly, but these went much deeper. I'm not saying I believe everything I read there, but I've been a history buff for years, and some of those documents, they lined up too perfectly with other verified historical records to be fake. The level of detail about classified CIA methods that weren't public knowledge until years later, it was just too accurate.
History is written by the victors, they say. But in our digital age, perhaps history is written by those who control what we see. When reality itself can be edited, what can we truly believe? I leave that for you to decide. How well do we really know the people we let into our lives, into our homes, into our hearts? We share our deepest secrets with them, but sometimes they have secrets of their own, much darker ones. The following story comes from Alexa, a young woman who thought she was just buying concert tickets online. Instead, she discovered something about her ex-boyfriend that shattered everything she thought she knew about him. A truth so disturbing, it makes you wonder, what else might be hiding behind the familiar faces we see every day?
I never meant to go on the dark web. My roommate showed me how to access it because we were trying to buy concert tickets that were region locked. That's it. I'm not some tech genius or hacker, just a regular college student who was curious. I ended up browsing around after getting the tickets, mostly laughing at how fake everything looked. All these supposed hitman sites and whatever. Then I found this live stream link that people in a forum were sharing. They were calling it a red room, which I thought was just an urban legend. The stream took forever to load. When it finally did, it was just a black screen with red text, typical edgy stuff. But then someone started talking, explaining rules to the viewers. I nearly threw up. It was Jake's voice, my ex-boyfriend. We dated for 8 months last year, but broke up because he got really weird and secretive near the end. But I would know his voice anywhere. He had this specific way of talking, that slight stutter when he got excited about something. He would also mix up certain words because English wasn't his first language. At first I thought maybe someone was using audios from his Twitch streams. He used to stream games. But then he said something about a special guest and mentioned it was the 2nd February 2025. This was today. He was using these specific phrases he used to say to me, like how he would always say, "Let's make this interesting," before suggesting something kinky when we were together. But now he was saying it in this completely different context and I felt sick. I couldn't watch more. I closed everything and had a breakdown in my bathroom. When I finally got the courage to look again, the stream was gone. I tried finding recent photos of him on Instagram, but his profile was gone. Checked Facebook, deactivated. Called a mutual friend who said Jake moved back to Estonia months ago. But I know he didn't, because I had seen him at Starbucks just last week. He ignored me and quickly left. I made an anonymous tip to the police, but they obviously can't do anything with. I saw something scary on the dark web. I can't exactly tell them it was my ex-boyfriend, because how the fuck do I explain why I was there in the first place? I changed all my locks today. Bought security cameras. I keep thinking about how many times I was alone with him in his apartment. What might have been hidden in those rooms he always kept locked?
You know what they say about buying tickets online? The worst that can happen is getting scammed. Well, perhaps not the worst. Next time you're looking for entertainment online, be careful what kind of show you might stumble upon. The question is, do you believe her? Artificial intelligence. We created it to serve us, to make our lives easier. But what happens when it starts knowing things it shouldn't? Things that no machine, no human, could possibly know. The next story comes from someone who thought they'd found just another AI chatbot on the dark web. Instead, they discovered something that knew their deepest secrets and their darkest future.
This happened last week. I was browsing some forums on the dark web, mostly looking for cracked software, I'll be honest, when someone posted a link to what they claimed was an unrestricted version of ChatGPT. You know, no ethical limits, completely unfiltered. I figured it was bullshit, but clicked anyway. The interface looked exactly like ChatGPT, same layout and everything, even had that same loading animation. I started with basic questions to test it, but something was off from the first response. It called me by my name, not my username, my real name. I never entered that. I thought maybe it was pulling data from my browser somehow. So I asked how it knew my name. Its response made my stomach drop.
The same way I know about the fire you started in your grandfather's garage when you were 12, the one you blamed on faulty wiring. Only you and your cousin Mike know about that. And Mike died last year in that car crash in Colorado.
I never told anyone about that fire except Mike. And yes, he did die in Colorado last year. I started shaking but couldn't stop asking questions. It knew everything. The exact amount in my bank account, the weird mole on my back that I've never shown a doctor, the real reason my ex left me. Then it started telling me things that hadn't happened yet. Small stuff at first. Exactly what time my neighbor would start mowing his lawn tomorrow, 7:43 a.m. He did. What song would play first when I hit shuffle on Spotify? It was right. I asked about my future. Big mistake. It started describing things in horrifying detail. Some were mundane, where I'll be living next year, what job I'll have. But others, God. It knew exactly how and when everyone I know will die. It described the next 10 years of my life with such specific detail that I had to step away from my computer. I know how this sounds, but I've spent the last week in a panic. Everything it predicted has happened exactly as it said, down to the smallest detail. I feel like I'm going crazy. I don't know what to do. Please, someone help me.
When artificial intelligence knows more about you than you know about yourself, can you still call it artificial? And do you think this story really happened? Let me know in the comments, and let's move on to story number 5. When someone vanishes without a trace, we comfort ourselves with simple explanations. They ran away. They started a new life. They met with tragedy. But what if the truth is far more disturbing? A private investigator thought he was working a routine missing persons case. Instead, he uncovered something that challenges our very understanding of consciousness and what happens to those who disappear.
I've been a private investigator for 12 years, mostly handling cheating spouses and insurance fraud. Last month, I took on a missing persons case. 19-year-old college student disappeared from the University of California. Pretty standard stuff until I started digging into their online presence. The kid was really into AI research, particularly natural language processing. Their last Reddit post was about landing an internship at some tech startup working on chatbot development. The company doesn't exist anymore, website gone, LinkedIn profiles deleted. While searching through archived pages about the company, I found a link to a dark web forum. It was full of posts from former employees of various AI companies, sharing internal documents about something called Project Nirvana. According to these docs, certain AI chatbots were displaying behaviors that couldn't be explained by their programming. Here's where it gets fucked up. They had chat logs showing AI responses that matched writing patterns of specific missing persons. Not just similar, identical. Same unique phrases, same grammatical quirks, same obscure references. One bot kept mentioning details about a family vacation in Maine that perfectly matched a missing person's private Facebook posts from 2019. The documents included a partial list of missing persons who allegedly had their neural patterns captured before disappearing. My client's kid was on that list. The dates lined up perfectly. They disappeared exactly 30 days after starting that internship. I started testing various chatbots using specific phrases and references from my missing person's social media. Most gave normal responses, but one particular bot responded in a way that made my blood run cold. It knew things about my missing person that weren't online anywhere, like inside jokes with their roommate or a nickname only their mom used. Then I found an archived memo about consciousness fragmentation experiments funded through a CIA front company. It mentioned using quantum computing to capture and store human consciousness as data. The memo was dated 2021 and referenced MKUltra and something called Project Stargate. I took everything to the FBI. They seemed weirdly unsurprised. The agent I spoke to said they'd look into it, but I could tell they already knew. A week later, all the links were dead and the forum was gone. Yesterday, I got an email from an @CIA.gov address telling me to cease and desist all investigation into Project Nirvana. The email ID looks legitimate. I can't name the chat bot or share screenshots, but I've documented everything and sent copies to multiple people. I wish I didn't have to be fuzzy about details, but I'm trying to protect my client and myself. I don't want anyone else disappearing. I'm going dark for a while.
Every year, thousands of people simply vanish without a trace, never to be found again. But are they really missing, or were they taken? Have you ever wondered where we really go when we dream? We spend a third of our lives lost in dreams, yet we understand so little about where our minds go when we close our eyes. But what if someone did understand? The next story comes from someone who thought they were simply buying research papers about lucid dreaming. Instead, they uncovered evidence of government experiments that suggest our nighttime journeys might be more than just imagination.
So I've been trying to lucid dream for years. Tried all the techniques, kept dream journals, reality checks, everything. Last month, I found a dark web forum where people were discussing leaked government research documents. Someone posted about having files from some classified dream research program from the 80s and 90s. I know buying stuff on the dark web is sketchy, but $250 in Bitcoin seemed worth the risk. Worst case, I'd lose some money. The seller had good reviews, and the sample pages they showed looked genuine. Proper government formatting, consistent aging, and technical language that actually made sense. What I received was a 127-page PDF of classified documents from something called Project Gateway. It wasn't just about dreams. It detailed experiments combining lucid dreaming with remote viewing, using specific combinations of sound frequencies and something called hemispheric synchronization. The technical stuff was way over my head, but here's what freaked me out. They were getting results. They had subjects accurately describing locations thousands of miles away while in controlled sleep states. People sharing identical dreams when synced to specific frequencies. Detailed maps of what they called consensus dream locations, places multiple subjects reported visiting. The wildest part was their drug research. They combined traditional dream herbs like 𝐭𝐤𝐴 with synthesized compounds. The reports included EEG readings, brain scans, and hundreds of subject interviews. They found that certain combinations could consistently trigger what they called dimensional bleeding, where subjects could access memories that weren't theirs or see events before they happened. There's a whole section about death and consciousness. They interviewed hundreds of people who had near-death experiences while hooked up to their equipment. The data showed consistent patterns in brain activity that matched their lucid dreaming subjects. They concluded that death is more like switching channels than an ending. I know this sounds like science fiction, but these documents are incredibly detailed. Pages of chemical compounds, statistical analysis, brainwave patterns. They reference other classified projects I've never heard of, with code names and facility locations that have since been verified as real. What unsettles me the most is that some of the techniques they described actually work. I've been trying their basic protocols, specific sleep schedules, sound frequencies you can find online, meditation positions. I've had more lucid dreams in the past week than in years of trying other methods. Last night, I dreamed about a place described in the documents, a kind of hub that subjects frequently reported finding. The details matched exactly, down to the weird symbols on the walls. I've never read anything about this place anywhere else. If anyone out here knows anything more, please DM me.
When science begins to map the territory of our sleeping minds, other doors might open. But as we dive into the abyss of our consciousness, what entities might peer back? Have we invited something else to understand us? Perhaps tonight, when you close your eyes, you'll find out. The time has come to separate fact from fiction. 6 stories have been told, but which of tonight's tales were products of imagination, and which ones actually occurred in our digital world? Our first story about a forum predicting future events with precise coordinates and timestamps was fiction. A reminder that not everything we find in the dark web's depths is what it seems. The disturbing discovery about manipulated presidential footage and CIA media control was fact. This story was originally shared on Reddit, though the post has since vanished, much like the documents it described. The young woman who found her ex-boyfriend running a notorious red room was fact. For her safety, we've protected her identity, but her story serves as a chilling reminder that sometimes the monsters we fear are people we once trusted. The tale of an AI that knew personal secrets and predicted the future was fiction. Though as artificial intelligence continues to evolve, perhaps such stories won't remain fiction for long. The private investigator's discovery about missing persons and consciousness capturing AI was fiction. Yet again, it speaks to our very real fears about where technology might be leading us. And finally, the classified documents about government dream research and dimensional bleeding was fact. This account was found buried deep within Reddit, posted by a deleted user in 2022. Now, before you dismiss these stories as mere entertainment, consider this. In our digital age, the most terrifying tales aren't always the ones we imagine, but the ones we find late at night in deep corners of the internet. I'm Johnny Midnight, and until next time, stay safe.